7 years of sleepless nights, countless research papers, and defending my dissertation in front of a panel of professors who could make or break my career, all leading up to this moment. I adjusted my doctoral hood one last time and scanned the auditorium. Empty seats stared back at me like hollow eyes, not a single familiar face in the crowd of strangers. While I was walking across the stage to receive my PhD in biomedical engineering, my entire family was 40 miles away eating pulled pork at my brother's backyard barbecue.
I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The morning started like any other graduation day should. I woke up at 5 a.m. in my cramped studio apartment near Northwestern University, the same place I'd called home for the past 3 years while completing my doctoral program. My cap and gown hung perfectly pressed on the closet door, and my invitation cards sat in a neat stack on my kitchen counter, 27 of them, each one carefully addressed to family members and close friends. I'd sent those invitations 8 weeks ago. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the Evanston campus, and I'd even included a small map with directions and parking information. My mom, Patricia Parker, had called 2 weeks prior to confirm she'd be there. My dad, Robert, had grunted his usual "wouldn't miss it" over the phone. My younger sister, Emma, promised she'd drive up from Springfield with her boyfriend, Marcus. Even my grandmother, Ruth, who rarely left her assisted living facility in Rockford, had her caregiver confirm her attendance. But the person I was most nervous about was my brother, Tyler. Tyler Parker was 28, 2 years younger than me, and the golden child of our family, despite having dropped out of community college after 1 semester. While I'd spent the last decade buried in textbooks and laboratory research, Tyler had bounced between construction jobs, briefly tried his hand at car sales, and was currently working as a bartender at some dive bar in Aurora. Yet somehow, he remained everyone's favorite. It wasn't just that Tyler was naturally charismatic, though he was. He had this effortless way of making people laugh, of turning any conversation into an entertaining story. At family gatherings, he'd have everyone in stitches with his impressions of difficult customers or his tales from various job sites. Meanwhile, I'd try to share updates about my research on cellular regeneration therapies, only to watch eyes glaze over as I explained the intricacies of stem cell differentiation. The contrast between us had been apparent since childhood. Tyler was the star quarterback in high school who dated the homecoming queen and threw legendary parties when our parents went out of town. I was the kid who spent Friday nights in the school library, president of the Science Olympiad team, and graduated as valedictorian with a full scholarship to Northwestern. You'd think academic achievement would earn some respect, but in the Parker family, Tyler's social successes always seemed to overshadow my scholastic ones. When I made the dean's list every semester during undergrad, the celebration dinner lasted exactly 1 course before Tyler dominated the conversation with stories about his latest girlfriend or weekend adventures. When I got accepted into Northwestern's prestigious PhD program, my dad's response was, "That's great, honey," followed immediately by, "Tyler, tell your mother about that funny thing that happened at work." The morning of my graduation, I decided to call Tyler directly. We hadn't spoken in almost a month, which wasn't unusual for us. Our relationship existed in a strange space of sibling obligation rather than genuine closeness. I dialed his number while sipping coffee from my favorite mug, a gift from my research advisor that read, "Future Dr. Parker." "Yo, Kinsley, what's up?" Tyler's voice was groggy, clearly having just woken up despite it being nearly 9 a.m. "Hey, just wanted to remind you about my graduation today. The ceremony starts at 2, but you should probably get there by 1:30 to find parking." There was a pause that lasted too long. Oh shit, that's today? My stomach dropped. "Tyler, I sent you an invitation 2 months ago. We talked about this." Right, of course. It's just, man, this is terrible timing. I already made plans for today. What kind of plans could be more important than your sister's PhD graduation? I'm throwing this barbecue thing at my place. It's been planned for weeks. I invited like 50 people, bought all this food, and rented a smoke machine. Everyone's already confirmed they're coming. I felt heat rising in my chest. So reschedule it. It's a barbecue, Tyler, not a wedding. I can't just reschedule now. People have already arranged time off work, some are driving in from other cities. Jenny Morrison is coming all the way from Milwaukee. Jenny Morrison, Tyler's ex-girlfriend from high school, who he'd been trying to reconnect with for months. Suddenly, the barbecue made more sense. This is my PhD graduation, Tyler. I've worked for 7 years at this moment. I know, and I'm proud of you, I really am. But you'll have other graduations, right? Masters, postdoc stuff. The ignorance in that statement hit me like a physical blow. Tyler, this is my final graduation. After this, I'm Dr. Parker. This is the culmination of my entire academic career. Look, maybe I can stop by after the barbecue winds down. What time does your thing end?
It's not a thing, Tyler. It's the most important day of my life. But he'd already moved on, talking about potato salad and whether he had enough propane for the grill. I hung up without saying goodbye. I tried calling my mom next, hoping she could talk sense into Tyler, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Same with my dad. Emma's phone did the same. Even my grandmother's caregiver wasn't answering. By 11 a.m., a terrible suspicion began forming in my mind. I opened Facebook for the first time in weeks and searched for Tyler's profile. There it was, posted just 2 hours ago. BBQ at my place starting at noon. Can't wait to see everyone. It's gonna be epic. Fire Ross joy. The comments section was filled with enthusiastic responses. Marcus, Emma's boyfriend. Can't wait, bro. My cousin David from Peoria. Driving up now. Even my own mother had liked the post and commented, bringing my famous coleslaw. I scrolled through Tyler's photos from previous barbecues. There was my dad, manning the grill with a beer in his hand, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. Emma and Marcus lounging in lawn chairs, laughing at something off camera. My mom was deep in conversation with Tyler's neighbor, surrounded by people who looked genuinely happy to be there. It struck me then how different Tyler's gatherings were from my academic events. When I'd invited family to my master's thesis defense 3 years ago, they'd sat in uncomfortable silence in a sterile conference room while I presented 45 minutes of research data. The questions from my committee were technical and intimidating. Afterwards, we went to a quiet restaurant where conversation felt forced and awkward. Tyler's barbecues, on the other hand, were loud and messy and fun. There was music, games, people from all walks of life mixing together. Kids running around while adults told stories and laughed until their sides hurt. It was the kind of event people actually wanted to attend, unlike academic ceremonies filled with lengthy speeches and formal protocols. But this wasn't just any academic ceremony. This was my PhD graduation. 7 years of 18-hour days, failed experiments, research that led nowhere, imposter syndrome, and financial stress living on a graduate student stipend. 7 years of missing family gatherings, skipping vacations, and declining social invitations because I had deadlines to meet and data to analyze. I'd written my dissertation on novel approaches to cardiac tissue regeneration using bioengineered scaffolds, research that could potentially help millions of people with heart disease. I'd published 4 papers in peer-reviewed journals, presented at international conferences, and earned the respect of leaders in my field. My advisor, Dr. Sarah Chen, had called my work groundbreaking and the kind of research that changes lives. Yet none of that seemed to matter to my family. They'd rather eat hamburgers and play cornhole than celebrate my academic achievements. By noon, I was getting ready with mechanical precision, my emotions shut down to avoid falling apart completely. I put on the professional dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion, navy blue, conservative, appropriate for photographs that would supposedly capture this milestone moment. I arranged my hood and adjusted my cap, practicing my walk across the stage in my small apartment. My phone remained silent. No good luck texts, no proud family messages, no last-minute changes of heart from Tyler or anyone else. At 1 p.m., I drove to campus alone, listening to the same classical music playlist I'd used to calm my nerves before major exams. The parking lot was full of families taking photos, graduates embracing relatives, flower bouquets, and proud smiles everywhere I looked. I parked in the furthest corner and sat in my car for 10 minutes, watching other people's celebrations through my windshield. A girl about my age was surrounded by what looked like 3 generations of family members, all wearing t-shirts with her photo and Dr. Martinez printed in bold letters. An older man in engineering regalia was being hugged by twin toddlers who kept trying to touch his funny hat. Everyone had someone there for them. Everyone except me. At 1:15, I finally walked toward the auditorium, my heels clicking against the concrete pathway with each determined step. Other graduates moved in clusters with their families, but I walked alone, clutching my program and trying to ignore the excited chatter around me. The check-in process was efficient. A volunteer with a clipboard found my name, Kinsley Marie Parker, and handed me my seating assignment. Row G, seat 14. I'd be sitting between strangers, which somehow felt fitting. Inside the auditorium, I found my designated spot and settled in next to a quiet guy named Brandon who was getting his PhD in physics. His entire extended family had apparently flown in from Texas, filling an entire row behind us. His grandmother kept taking photos of him adjusting his cap, and his little nephew kept asking loud questions about why Uncle Brandon was wearing a funny costume. "Where's your family sitting?" Brandon asked, making polite conversation as we waited for the ceremony to begin.
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. "They couldn't make it," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Prior commitments." He looked genuinely sympathetic. "That sucks. This is such a big deal. My mom started crying when I called her about the ceremony date 6 months ago." 6 months ago, I called my mom too. She'd seemed excited then, asking about guest limits and whether she should book a hotel room. What has changed between then and now? When did Tyler's barbecue become more important than my graduation? The auditorium continued filling up around us. Faculty members in their colorful academic regalia filed onto the stage, and the Dean of Graduate Studies began testing the microphone. I pulled out my phone and checked for messages one final time. Nothing. But social media told a different story. Tyler had posted a live video on Instagram showing his backyard transformation. String lights hung between trees, picnic tables covered in red checkered cloths, and a massive smoker billowing aromatic clouds. The video panned across familiar faces: my cousin Rachel arranging a dessert table, my uncle Mike helping Tyler set up speakers for music. "This is going to be the barbecue of the century," Tyler announced to his phone camera. "We've got brisket, pulled pork, ribs, and my mom's legendary coleslaw. Can't wait for everyone to get here." The comments were already pouring in. My Aunt Linda, "On our way." Family friend Doug Morrison, "Bringing the kids." My own mother, "So excited, see you soon." I closed the app and shoved my phone into my purse. The ceremony was about to begin, and I needed to focus on the moment I'd worked so hard to reach. Dean Richardson stepped to the podium and welcomed everyone to Northwestern University's graduate commencement ceremony. She spoke about perseverance, intellectual curiosity, and the pursuit of knowledge that drives doctoral candidates through years of rigorous study. Her words should have felt inspiring, but they seemed to echo hollowly in the space where my family's absence sat like a physical weight. The first part of the ceremony involved recognizing various academic achievements and honors. Several students received special recognition for their research contributions. When they called Dr. Amanda Foster for her groundbreaking work in environmental chemistry, her parents stood up in the audience and cheered so loudly that everyone laughed, including Amanda herself. Then came the individual degree presentations, starting with master's degrees and working up to the doctoral candidates. We were arranged alphabetically, which meant I'd be toward the end, since my last name started with P. As I waited, I watched other graduates cross the stage. Each person had their moment of glory, their name announced clearly over the sound system, their achievement celebrated with applause from the audience. Some had small delegations, just parents and siblings. Others had what looked like entire communities cheering them on. Dr. Michael Chen walked across the stage to thunderous applause from a section that was clearly packed with his relatives. Dr. Lisa Nakamura's family had created a banner that read "Dr. Lisa" with sparkly letters. Dr. James Rodriguez's graduation was marked by someone's loud whistle and shouting in what sounded like Spanish. During this process, I couldn't help but imagine what it would have been like if my family had come.
My dad would probably have been uncomfortable in his good suit, fidgeting with his tie and checking his watch, but he would have been there. My mom would have cried. She always cried at milestone events, even when I graduated high school. Emma would have taken 100 photos and immediately posted them with captions about her brilliant big sister. Even Tyler, despite his general disinterest in academic achievement, would have been forced to acknowledge that this was actually a pretty big deal. My grandmother Ruth would have been the most emotional of all. She'd grown up during the Depression, dropped out of school in 8th grade to help support her family, and always regretted not having more education. She used to tell me stories about walking past the local high school and wondering what it would be like to sit in those classrooms, to read all those books, to learn about the world beyond her small farming community. When I'd started my PhD program, she'd gripped my hands with tears in her eyes and said, "You're doing what I never could, sweetheart. You make this whole family proud." Apparently not proud enough to skip a barbecue. The alphabet was progressing steadily. Dr. Jennifer Olson received her degree in educational psychology. Dr. Mark Patterson got his degree in mechanical engineering. Then I heard it. Dr. Kinsley Marie Parker, biomedical engineering. I stood up and walked toward the stage, my legs feeling strangely disconnected from my body. The auditorium's applause was polite but impersonal, the kind of clapping people do out of courtesy rather than celebration. No one was cheering specifically for me. Dr. Chen, my research advisor, was standing at the center of the stage with a proud smile. She'd been more supportive during my doctoral journey than my own family, spending countless hours reviewing my research, helping me navigate academic politics, and encouraging me through the inevitable setbacks that come with cutting-edge research. As I approached her, she leaned in and whispered, "Your family would be so proud if they could see you right now." If they could see me. The phrase stung more than she probably intended. They could see me. They'd chosen not to. I shook hands with the dean, posed for the official photograph, and accepted my diploma folder. The whole process took maybe 30 seconds. 7 years of work condensed into a brief moment on stage, witnessed by strangers who would forget my name before the ceremony ended.
Walking back to my seat, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in my accomplishment, certainly. I'd earned this degree through years of dedication and hard work. But also a profound sadness that the people who mattered most to me had found something more important to do. As the ceremony continued with the remaining graduates, I checked my phone discreetly. Tyler had posted another update from his barbecue. This time, it was a group photo of about 20 people gathered around his deck, all holding beers and grinning at the camera. I could see my parents in the background, my dad actually laughing at something, my mom deep in conversation with Tyler's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. Right now, while I was sitting in this auditorium celebrating the biggest achievement of my academic career, my family was having the time of their lives at my dropout brother's backyard party. The final graduates crossed the stage, and Dean Richardson delivered closing remarks about the responsibilities that come with advanced degrees. She talked about using our knowledge to make the world better, about being leaders in our fields, about the difference we could make in society. But all I could think about was going home to my empty apartment, hanging up my graduation gown, and trying to figure out what came next in a life where academic success apparently mattered less than good barbecue sauce. The ceremony ended at 4:23 p.m. While other families clustered together for photos on the steps of the auditorium, I walked straight to my car without looking back. My phone had been buzzing with notifications during the final speeches, but I hadn't dared check it until I was safely alone in the parking lot. 17 new posts from Tyler's barbecue had flooded my social media feeds. The party was in full swing now, with games of cornhole, kids running through sprinklers, and what looked like an impromptu karaoke session happening on the deck. In one video, I watched my own father singing Sweet Caroline while my mother recorded him with her phone, both of them laughing harder than I'd seen them laugh in years. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, officially Dr. Kinsley Parker, sitting alone in a campus parking lot while my family celebrated my brother's ability to organize a successful cookout. I drove home in silence, still wearing my cap and gown, because taking them off felt too final, like admitting defeat.
My studio apartment had never felt smaller or more depressing. The congratulations cards I'd optimistically bought for myself sat unopened on the counter, next to a bottle of champagne that was supposed to be shared with people who cared about my achievement. Instead of wallowing, I decided to do something productive. I opened my laptop and began updating my LinkedIn profile with my new doctoral status. Dr. Kinsley Parker, PhD in biomedical engineering, looked impressive in writing, even if it felt hollow in reality. My phone rang while I was uploading a professional headshot. The caller ID showed my grandmother's assisted living facility. "Kinsley, dear, it's Margaret from Sunset Manor." Margaret was one of the senior caregivers who'd been working with my grandmother for the past 2 years. "I wanted to call and congratulate you on your graduation today. Ruth has been talking about it all week." My throat tightened. "Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot. She's been showing your invitation to everyone here. The other residents are all so impressed that her granddaughter was getting a doctorate. She kept saying, 'My Kinsley is going to be a real doctor, helping people with their hearts.'" I had to pull the phone away from my ear for a moment to compose myself. My grandmother understood my research better than my own parents did. "Is she available to talk?" I asked. "Well, that's actually why I'm calling. Ruth had a small episode this afternoon around 2 o'clock. Nothing serious," Margaret quickly added, "but her blood pressure spiked, and we had to have the doctor check her over. She's resting now, but she was so upset about missing your graduation. She kept apologizing and asking me to call you." "An episode? What kind of episode?" "She got very agitated when your mother called to cancel her transportation to your ceremony. Apparently, there was some family barbecue that everyone was attending instead. Ruth became quite distressed about the change of plans. She couldn't understand why a barbecue would be more important than your graduation." My stomach dropped. My mother canceled Grandma's transportation? "Yes, around 11 a.m. this morning. Your grandmother had been ready to go since 9 a.m., dressed in her best outfit, holding your invitation. When the call came that she wouldn't be going after all, she became very confused and upset. That's when her blood pressure started acting up. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Not only had my family chosen Tyler's barbecue over my graduation, but they'd prevented my grandmother, the one person who truly understood the significance of my achievement, from attending. "Margaret, I'm coming to see her right now." "Oh, honey, visiting hours don't start until—"
Please, I just graduated with my PhD today, and my grandmother was the only one who really cared. I need to see her." There was a pause, then Margaret's voice softened. "Of course, dear. Come on up. I'll make sure you can get in." I drove to Rockford, still wearing my graduation regalia, making the 40-minute trip in 35 minutes. Sunset Manor was a modest facility that always smelled like disinfectant and cafeteria food, but the staff genuinely cared about the residents. Margaret met me at the front desk with a warm smile and a visitor's badge. "She's awake and asking for you," Margaret said as we walked down the hallway. "Fair warning, though, she's still pretty worked up about missing your ceremony." I found my grandmother sitting in her favorite chair by the window, wearing the navy blue dress she reserved for special occasions. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, and she'd even put on the pearl earrings my grandfather had given her 50 years ago. She'd been dressed up for my graduation and never got to go. "Kinsley!" Her face lit up when she saw me, then immediately crumpled with regret. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry I missed your big day. I was all ready to go, and then your mother called." I knelt beside her chair and took her weathered hands in mine. "Grandma, it's okay. You're the only one who really wanted to be there anyway." "That's not okay at all. This was supposed to be the proudest day of our family's life. My granddaughter, the doctor. Do you know how long I've been telling everyone about this?" She gestured toward her dresser, where my graduation invitation was prominently displayed next to a collection of photos. But it wasn't just my invitation. She'd created a whole shrine. Photos of me from every stage of my education, from elementary school science fairs to my college graduation to the day I got accepted into the PhD program. Articles I'd published, printed out and carefully arranged.
Even a photo of me in my lab coat that I'd sent her last Christmas. Grandma, you kept all of this. Of course I did. You're the first person in our family to go to college, let alone get a doctorate. Do you understand what an incredible thing you've accomplished? I felt tears starting to form. My grandmother, who'd never made it past 8th grade, understood the magnitude of my achievement better than anyone else in my family. Tell me about the ceremony, she said, settling back in her chair. I want to hear everything. So I told her about walking across the stage, about shaking hands with the dean, about Dr. Chen's proud smile. I described the other graduates and their families, the academic regalia, the speeches about making a difference in the world. My grandmother listened to every word with rapt attention, asking questions about the research recognition and nodding with pride when I explained what my dissertation would mean for cardiac patients. "And your family missed all of that for a barbecue?" she asked when I finished. Tyler had been planning it for weeks. Everyone was already committed. My grandmother's expression hardened in a way I rarely saw. Tyler's been planning barbecues his whole life, and he'll plan many more. How many times does his sister get a doctorate? She had a point that cut straight to the heart of the matter. Tyler could throw a barbecue any weekend he wanted. I would never have another PhD graduation. Your parents used to talk about how proud they were when you were little. Your mother would brag to anyone who'd listen about your grades, your science projects, how smart you were. I don't know what happened to that pride. What happened was Tyler. Somewhere along the way, my academic success had been overshadowed by my brother's social magnetism. Good grades became expected rather than celebrated. Scientific achievements were too complicated for casual conversation. Meanwhile, Tyler's stories about work mishaps or dating adventures were immediately entertaining and accessible to everyone. "I raised your father to value hard work and education," my grandmother said, her voice taking on a steely tone I'd inherited from her. "His father worked in the steel mills for 30 years so your dad could have better opportunities. And your dad worked double shifts at the plant so you and Tyler could go to college. The fact that he chose a barbecue over your graduation would make his father roll over in his grave." Margaret knocked softly and entered with 2 cups of coffee. "How are we doing here?" "We're doing much better now," my grandmother said, squeezing my hand. I got to hear all about my granddaughter's graduation, even if I couldn't be there in person. After Margaret left, my grandmother reached into her drawer and pulled out a small wrapped box. "I was going to give this to you after the ceremony," she said. "It's been in our family for 3 generations." Inside was a simple gold locket that had belonged to my grandmother, the woman who'd immigrated from Ireland with nothing but determination and dreams of a better life for her children. "She would have been so proud of you," my grandmother said as she helped me put on the necklace. Education was everything to her. She cleaned houses and took in laundry so her kids could stay in school instead of working in the factories. The weight of the locket against my chest felt significant, connecting me to generations of women who'd valued knowledge and perseverance over popularity and ease. "I know today didn't go the way you hoped," my grandmother continued, "but don't let other people's choices diminish what you've accomplished. You're Dr. Parker now, and that means something important, whether your family understands it or not." I stayed with my grandmother until 8 p.m., long past normal visiting hours. Margaret had quietly extended my visit, understanding that we both needed this time together. When I finally kissed Grandma Ruth goodbye, she made me promise to call her with updates about my job search and research opportunities. "Don't you dare let this family make you feel small," she said as I prepared to leave. "You're going places they can't even imagine." The drive back to Evanston gave me time to process everything. The locket felt warm against my skin, a tangible reminder that at least one person in my family understood the magnitude of what I'd accomplished. But it also highlighted just how isolated I'd become from everyone else. By the time I reached my apartment, Tyler's barbecue was apparently winding down. His final Instagram story showed a group photo of about 30 people gathered around his fire pit, making s'mores and laughing in the golden hour light. The caption read, "Best barbecue ever. Thanks to everyone who made this day perfect." Perfect. While I'd been visiting my grandmother in a nursing home, still wearing my graduation gown, Tyler was having the perfect day with our entire family. I poured myself a glass of the champagne I'd bought for celebration and sat at my small kitchen table, still in my academic regalia. The silence in my apartment was deafening compared to the laughter and music I'd seen in Tyler's videos all day. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom at 9:47 p.m. "Hope your graduation went well, honey. Sorry we couldn't make it. Tyler's barbecue was really special. Talk soon. Heart." That was it. No apology for the last-minute cancellation, no acknowledgement that they'd prevented my grandmother from attending, no recognition that this was the most important day of my academic career. Just a hope it went well, like I'd attended some minor work function. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. It was fine. Grandma ended up in the hospital because of the stress from missing it, but she's okay now. The reply came immediately. What? Is she all right? What happened? So now she was concerned. I typed back, "Her blood pressure spiked when you canceled her transportation. She'd been dressed and ready since 9 a.m. My phone rang within seconds. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. Finally, I answered. "What, Mom?" "Kinsley, I had no idea Ruth was that upset. I thought she'd understand about the barbecue. Tyler worked so hard on it, and everyone was already committed to coming." "Everyone was committed to my graduation, too. You confirmed it months ago." "I know, but this was different. Tyler doesn't get many chances to bring the family together like this. You'll have plenty of other achievements to celebrate." The casualness of that statement hit me like a slap. Other achievements to celebrate? This was my doctoral degree, not a promotion or a work anniversary. There wouldn't be another PhD graduation. "Mom, do you even understand what I accomplished today?" "Of course I do. You got your doctorate. That's wonderful, honey." "It's not just a doctorate. I spent 7 years developing technology that could help people with heart disease live longer, healthier lives. I've published research that other scientists are building on. I'm contributing to knowledge that could save lives." There was a pause. "Well, that's great, Kinsley, really. But you know, your father and I don't really understand all that scientific stuff. Tyler's barbecue was something we could all enjoy together." And there it was, the fundamental divide that had defined my relationship with my family for years. My achievements were too complicated, too removed from their everyday experience to feel real or important. Tyler's barbecue was immediate, accessible, and fun. My groundbreaking research was abstract and intimidating. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you could try to understand? Maybe you could ask questions or show some interest in what I've been working on for the past 7 years? Don't take that tone with me, young lady. We're very proud of you. But we also have other children to consider. Tyler has been struggling lately, and this barbecue was really important to him.
Struggling. Tyler was struggling because he'd been fired from his bartending job 3 weeks ago for showing up late too many times. But instead of facing consequences for his irresponsibility, he got a family-wide barbecue to cheer him up. Meanwhile, I'd spent the last 7 years living on a graduate student stipend, eating ramen noodles for dinner and working 18-hour days in a laboratory. But my struggles weren't visible or dramatic enough to warrant the same level of family support. "Mom, I have to go," I said, exhaustion finally overwhelming my anger. "Kinsley, wait. Don't be upset about this. Family is more important than any degree." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. The next morning brought a reality I hadn't fully considered during my graduation day disappointment. I needed to start my life as Dr. Kinsley Parker. My research advisor had arranged several interviews for postdoctoral positions, and I had applications pending at biotechnology companies across the country. Dr. Chen called at 10 a.m. while I was scrolling through job listings online. "Kinsley, how was yesterday? I'm sorry I had to leave right after the ceremony for another commitment." "It was fine," I lied. "Thank you for everything you've done to help me get here." "Are you kidding? You did all the hard work. I just provided guidance. Speaking of which, I have some exciting news. Remember that position at Meridian Biotech in Boston? They want to schedule a video interview with you for next week."
Meridian Biotech was one of the leading companies in cardiac tissue engineering, exactly the kind of place where my research could have real-world impact. The position would involve developing their next generation of heart repair technologies, with a starting salary that was triple what I'd been living on as a graduate student. That's incredible, Dr. Chen. I'd love to interview with them. Excellent. I'll send you the contact information. Kinsley, I want you to know that your dissertation was some of the finest research I've supervised in 20 years. You should be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. Her words meant more to me than any family celebration could have. Dr. Chen understood the significance of my work because she lived in the same world of scientific discovery and innovation. She knew what it took to push the boundaries of human knowledge. After we hung up, I spent the morning preparing for my job interviews and updating my portfolio. My research spoke for itself: 4 published papers, 2 conference presentations, and a dissertation that had been unanimously approved by my committee. On paper, I was exactly the kind of candidate that top-tier companies wanted to hire. But personally, I felt hollow. Professional success had always been my refuge when family relationships disappointed me, but this time felt different. This wasn't just another academic milestone that my family didn't understand. This was supposed to be the culmination of everything I'd worked for, the moment when all those years of sacrifice finally paid off. Instead, it had become a stark reminder of how different my values were from the people who were supposed to love and support me unconditionally. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Heard you were upset about missing Tyler's barbecue yesterday. Sorry you couldn't make it work with your graduation timing. Maybe next time you can plan around family events." Plan around family events, as if my PhD graduation was some casual appointment that I'd scheduled without considering anyone else's convenience. I didn't respond to Emma's text. Instead, I opened my laptop and began researching apartments in Boston, San Francisco, and Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, all cities where I had potential job opportunities. Maybe it was time to put some serious distance between myself and a family that would never truly understand or appreciate what I'd accomplished. The locket from my great-grandmother caught the afternoon light streaming through my window, reminding me that I carried the dreams and sacrifices of generations of women who'd fought for better opportunities. They'd understood that education was the path to freedom and independence. Perhaps it was time to honor their legacy by building a life where my achievements would be celebrated rather than dismissed, where my dedication to science would be valued rather than seen as an inconvenient complication to family barbecues. 3 days passed without any further contact from my family. No follow-up calls from my mother, no apology from my father, and certainly nothing from Tyler. It was as if my graduation had never happened, swept away by the lingering excitement of what everyone kept referring to as Tyler's amazing barbecue. On Wednesday morning, I had my video interview with Meridian Biotech. I set up my laptop in the corner of my apartment with the best lighting and wore the same professional blazer I'd bought for conference presentations. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, their Director of Research and Development, appeared on screen with 2 other team members from their cardiac engineering division. "Dr. Parker, we've been following your research for the past year," Dr. Walsh began. "Your work on bioengineered scaffolds is exactly the kind of innovation we need for our next-generation cardiac repair program."
The interview lasted 90 minutes. They grilled me on my methodology, asked detailed questions about my experimental results, and had me walk through potential applications for commercial development. These were the kinds of conversations I'd been craving my entire academic career, discussions with people who understood the complexities of my research and could see its potential to transform patient care. "We're prepared to offer you a position as senior research scientist," Dr. Walsh said near the end of the call. "The role would involve leading our cardiac tissue engineering team with a budget of $2.3 million for your first year of research. We're looking at a starting salary of $127,000 plus equity options and a signing bonus." My hands were shaking as I took notes. This wasn't just a job, it was the opportunity to continue my research at a level I'd only dreamed about during graduate school. The salary alone was more money than I'd ever imagined making, enough to finally live comfortably instead of scraping by on ramen noodles and thrift store clothes.
The position is based in our Boston facility, Dr. Walsh continued, and we'd need you to start within 6 weeks. Would that timeline work for you? Boston, 24 hours away from Aurora, Illinois, far enough that impromptu family barbecues wouldn't be an option, but close enough that I could still visit my grandmother regularly. That timeline would be perfect, I said. When would you need a decision? We're hoping to hear back from you by Friday. I know this is a big move, but Dr. Parker, your research could genuinely change how we treat heart failure. We'd love to have you lead that effort. After the call ended, I sat in my apartment staring at the notes I'd taken. 6 weeks from now, I could be living in Boston, working for one of the most prestigious biotech companies in the country, earning more money than anyone in my family had ever made. It felt surreal and exciting and terrifying all at once. I called my grandmother first. "Boston?" she said when I told her about the offer. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. And they're paying you how much?" I repeated the salary figure, and she whistled low through her teeth. "Kinsley Marie Parker, you are going to be rich and famous, a real scientist in a real laboratory, helping people with heart problems. This is everything we dreamed about when you were little." Her enthusiasm was infectious. For the first time since graduation, I felt genuinely excited about my future instead of dwelling on my family's disappointment. "Are you worried about moving so far away?" I asked. "Worried? Sweetheart, I'm proud as punch. You're going to Boston to do important work. That's what smart people do. They go where their talents are needed most." After talking with my grandmother, I decided to call my parents. They deserve to know about this opportunity, even if they probably wouldn't understand its significance. My father answered on the third ring. "Kinsley, how are you doing? Your mother told me you were upset about missing Tyler's barbecue." Missing Tyler's barbecue. Not that they'd missed my graduation, that I'd missed his party. "Dad, I wasn't upset about missing the barbecue. I was upset that everyone chose to skip my PhD graduation for it." "Well, you know how these things go. Tyler doesn't get many chances to show off for the family. He was really proud of that barbecue." I took a deep breath and decided to focus on the future instead of relitigating the past. "Dad, I got a job offer, a really good one, in Boston." "Boston? That's pretty far away, isn't it?" I explained the position, the salary, and the research opportunities. My father listened politely, making appropriate noises at the right moments, but I could tell he wasn't really grasping the implications. "Well, that sounds nice, honey. Boston's expensive, though. Are you sure that salary will be enough?" $127,000 wasn't enough. I'd been living on $24,000 a year as a graduate student. "It's a very competitive salary, Dad. This is a really prestigious company." "If you say so. You know, Tyler's been thinking about moving too, maybe to California or somewhere warm. He's got some ideas about starting his own business." Of course. Even news about my career breakthrough somehow became a conversation about Tyler's hypothetical plans. "Dad, this is a major opportunity for me. I'd be leading a research team, developing technology that could help millions of people." "That's great, sweetheart, really. Hey, let me put your mother on. She'll want to hear about this." My mother's reaction was similarly lukewarm. She focused on the practical concerns, how far Boston was from home, whether I'd be able to visit for holidays, if I knew anyone there. The significance of the research position and the career advancement seemed to sail right over her head. "It just seems like you're always moving farther away from family," she said. "First you went to Northwestern instead of staying local, and now you want to move to Boston. We hardly see you as it is." "Mom, this is my career. This is what I've been working toward for the past 7 years." "I know, but there must be jobs closer to home. What about that pharmaceutical company in Rockford? I'm sure they could use someone with your education." The pharmaceutical company in Rockford manufactured generic medications and employed mostly technicians with 2-year degrees. It would be like asking a concert pianist to play background music at a restaurant. "This isn't just any job, Mom. This is the opportunity to continue my research at the highest level. Meridian Biotech is one of the leading companies in the world for cardiac engineering." "Well, if it makes you happy," she said. But her tone suggested she thought I was making a mistake. Just don't forget about your family when you become successful and important. The conversation left me feeling more isolated than before. Here I was, sharing what should have been incredible news, and my parents' primary concern was that I'd be living too far away to attend family gatherings. They couldn't see past their own convenience to appreciate what this opportunity meant for my career and my future. I spent the rest of the day researching Boston neighborhoods and calculating moving expenses. The signing bonus would cover most of the relocation costs, and I could probably find a decent apartment in Cambridge or Somerville within my budget. For the first time in years, I'd be able to afford a place with a separate bedroom and maybe even a small office for working from home. That evening, Tyler finally called. "Hey sis, heard you're thinking about moving to Boston?" "Word travels fast." "Mom called me. She's pretty upset about it. Says you're running away from the family." I almost laughed at the irony. Running away? Tyler, you're the one who made it clear that family barbecues are more important than my major life achievements. Come on, don't be like that. The barbecue was just a fun day with everyone. It's not like we planned it to conflict with your graduation thing. My graduation thing? Tyler, it was my PhD graduation, the culmination of 7 years of work. I get that, but you have to understand, people need to relax and have fun sometimes. Not everything has to be so serious and academic. There it was again, the fundamental disconnect between how I viewed achievements and how my family saw them. To Tyler, my graduation was just another formal ceremony, no more significant than a birthday party or a work function. The years of research, the contribution to scientific knowledge, the potential to help patients, none of that registered as meaningful compared to an afternoon of grilled food and party games. Tyler, I got offered a position at one of the most prestigious biotech companies in the country. I'm going to be making more money than anyone in our family has ever made, doing research that could literally save lives. "That's cool," he said, but I could hear the disinterest in his voice. "It just seems like you're always chasing the next big thing instead of enjoying what you have." Enjoying what I had? What exactly did I have? A studio apartment, a mountain of student loan debt, and a family that valued barbecue planning over scientific achievement? "I'm taking the job," I said. "Okay, well, congrats, I guess. Mom's going to be really bummed, though." On Friday morning, I called Dr. Walsh at Meridian Biotech and accepted their offer. The words felt powerful coming out of my mouth. "I'm excited to join your team and lead the cardiac tissue engineering research program." "Outstanding," Dr. Walsh replied. "Welcome to Meridian, Dr. Parker. I'll have our HR department send over the paperwork today. We're thrilled to have someone of your caliber joining us." After hanging up, I sat in my apartment feeling a mix of exhilaration and finality. In 6 weeks, I'd be starting a completely new chapter of my life, 3 states away from the family drama that had overshadowed my greatest achievement. I called my grandmother immediately to share the news. "You took it! Oh, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. Boston won't know what hit them when Dr. Kinsley Parker arrives." "I'm a little nervous about being so far from home," I admitted. "Nervous? Honey, you're about to show the world what the Parker women are made of. Your great-grandmother would be dancing if she could see you now." Her confidence in me was infectious. While my parents worried about the distance and Tyler remained indifferent, my grandmother understood that this was exactly the kind of opportunity our family had been working toward for generations. The next few weeks passed in a blur of logistics. I found a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge, just 15 minutes from Meridian's research facility. It had hardwood floors, large windows, and enough space for a proper home office, luxuries I'd never been able to afford on a graduate student budget. I submitted my lease application, along with my employment verification, and the landlord called me within hours. "Dr. Parker, your application looks excellent. When would you like to move in?" It felt surreal to have landlords competing for my business, instead of me begging to be considered despite my limited income. My parents' reactions to the moving timeline were predictably focused on inconvenience rather than celebration. My mother called when I was packing my books into boxes. 6 weeks seems awfully fast, Kinsley. Are you sure you're not rushing into this? Mom, it's a standard timeline for professional positions. Companies need people to start when projects are ready to launch. Well, it's just that Tyler's birthday is next month, and we were hoping to have a family dinner. He specifically asked if you'd be there. Tyler's birthday? The same Tyler who couldn't be bothered to attend my PhD graduation was now expecting me to plan my career around his birthday dinner? I'll already be in Boston by then, Mom. I start work the Monday after I move. Can't you ask for a later start date? This is family. The irony was almost too much to bear. When Tyler wanted to throw a barbecue on my graduation day, family obligations were absolute and non-negotiable. But when my career required a specific timeline, suddenly family commitments should be flexible. Mom, I'm not delaying my dream job for Tyler's birthday party. He'll have plenty more birthdays. That's a very selfish attitude, Kinsley. Sometimes I wonder if all that education has made you forget what really matters. I hung up before the conversation could escalate further. What really mattered? Apparently not a PhD graduation or a career breakthrough that could impact thousands of patients. But a birthday dinner for my unemployed brother? That was sacred. 2 weeks before my move, I decided to drive to Aurora one last time to see Tyler's famous barbecue setup in person. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. I wanted to see the space that had been deemed more important than my graduation, without the performance of a family visit. Tyler's apartment complex was exactly what I'd expected, a sprawling development of identical buildings with a central courtyard and community amenities. His unit was on the ground floor, with a small patio that backed up to a common area where residents could use grills and picnic tables. The setup was nice enough: string lights hung between trees, a decent-sized deck with outdoor furniture, and access to a community fire pit. But it wasn't exactly the elaborate entertainment space I'd been imagining based on everyone's enthusiastic descriptions. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to understand how this modest patio had been worth missing the most important day of my academic career. The rational part of my brain knew it wasn't really about the location. It was about Tyler's ability to create an atmosphere where people felt relaxed and included, while my achievements felt intimidating and exclusionary to the same group. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Boston number. "Hi, Dr. Parker. This is Amanda Chen from the Meridian Research Team. Dr. Walsh asked me to reach out about your first week schedule. Really looking forward to working with you." Amanda Chen, another scientist who understood the significance of what I did, who was excited to collaborate on research that could change lives. In 2 weeks, I'd be surrounded by people who spoke my language and valued the same kinds of achievements I'd been working toward my entire career. I drove away from Tyler's apartment complex without getting out of the car. The following week, my grandmother's health took a sudden turn for the worse. Margaret called me on Wednesday evening while I was labeling moving boxes. "Kinsley, I think you should come see Ruth. She's been asking for you. And, well, she's not doing very well." I dropped everything and drove to Rockford immediately. My grandmother was propped up in her hospital bed, looking frailer than I'd ever seen her. But her eyes lit up when I entered the room. "There's my doctor," she said, her voice weaker than usual, but still warm.
How are you feeling, Grandma? Like, I'm running out of time, but that's okay. I got to see you become Dr. Parker, and that's all I really needed. We talked for hours about my upcoming move, the research I'd be doing, and the opportunities ahead of me. She made me promise to send her photos of my new apartment and to call her with updates about my work. "You know what I regret most about missing your graduation?" she asked as visiting hours were ending. "What's that?" "I never got to see you walk across that stage in your cap and gown. I've been imagining it for months, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes." An idea struck me. "Grandma, what if I brought my graduation regalia here? I could put it on and we could take some photos together." Her face transformed with delight. "Would you really do that?" The next day, I returned with my cap, gown, and hood. Margaret helped me get dressed in the common room, while my grandmother waited in her wheelchair, practically bouncing with excitement. When I walked out in my full doctoral regalia, several other residents gathered around to see what was happening. My grandmother started crying immediately. "Look, everyone," she announced to the small crowd. "This is my granddaughter, Dr. Kinsley Parker. She just got her PhD in heart medicine." For the next hour, I posed for photos with my grandmother, explained my research to curious residents, and basked in the kind of pride and recognition that should have happened on my actual graduation day. The other residents asked thoughtful questions about my work and seemed genuinely impressed by my achievements. Mrs. Henderson, who was 93 and sharp as a tack, grabbed my hand before I left. "Young lady, what you're doing is important work. Don't let anyone tell you differently. I've had 3 heart surgeries in the past 10 years, and research like yours is the reason I'm still here to meet you." Those words meant more to me than any family barbecue ever could. As I hugged my grandmother goodbye, she whispered in my ear, "Go to Boston and show them what we're made of. Don't look back." 3 days later, Margaret called to tell me that my grandmother had passed peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was scheduled for the day before I was supposed to leave for Boston. My family wanted me to delay my move. "Surely they'll understand about a family funeral," my mother said when I explained the timing conflict. But my grandmother's final words echoed in my mind, "Don't look back." I attended the funeral on Saturday and caught my flight to Boston on Sunday, just as planned. As the plane lifted off from O'Hare, I touched the locket my grandmother had given me and whispered a promise to make her proud. Boston welcomed me with crisp October air and the kind of intellectual energy I'd been craving my entire career. My first day at Meridian Biotech felt like stepping into a world where my expertise was not just valued, but essential. Dr. Walsh introduced me to my research team, 6 brilliant scientists from different specialties, all working toward the same goal of revolutionizing cardiac care. Amanda Chen, who'd texted me weeks earlier, turned out to be a postdoc from MIT with infectious enthusiasm for bioengineered solutions. Dr. Marcus Rivera had 15 years of experience in tissue engineering, and Dr. Sarah Kim specialized in biomaterials that could integrate seamlessly with human cells. "Dr. Parker, your research on cellular scaffolds is exactly what we need to push our current project to the next level," Dr. Rivera said during our first team meeting. "We've been waiting for someone with your specific expertise." Within 2 weeks, I was leading strategic planning sessions for a clinical trial that could begin human testing within 18 months. The budget I'd been given allowed for cutting-edge equipment and the kind of comprehensive research I'd only dreamed about during graduate school. Every day brought new challenges that required the full depth of my education and experience. My apartment in Cambridge became a sanctuary. Large windows flooded the space with natural light, and I finally had room for a proper home office, where I could review research papers and prepare presentations. For the first time in my adult life, I could afford to buy groceries without calculating every dollar, and I discovered the luxury of ordering takeout from restaurants that weren't fast food chains. But the most significant change was the complete absence of family drama. No one questioned my priorities, dismissed my achievements, or expected me to rearrange my career around social gatherings. My colleagues understood when I worked late, because breakthrough research doesn't follow a 9-to-5 schedule. They respected my dedication because they shared the same passion for scientific discovery.
3 months into my new position, our team made a major breakthrough. We successfully developed a bioengineered scaffold that could support cardiac cell regeneration with 40% better integration than existing technologies. The preliminary results were so promising that Dr. Walsh called an emergency meeting with the executive team. "This could revolutionize how we treat heart failure," she announced to the room full of executives and senior researchers. "Dr. Parker's team has achieved something we've been working toward for 5 years." The recognition felt surreal. These were some of the most respected names in biotechnology, and they were celebrating research I had led. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, invitations to present at international conferences, and inquiries from medical journals wanting to publish our findings. That evening, I called my parents to share the news.
That's nice, honey, my mother said when I finished explaining the breakthrough. Tyler got promoted to assistant manager at his new restaurant job. He's really excited about it. Even from 800 miles away, everything still came back to Tyler. Mom, what I'm telling you could impact millions of people with heart disease. This research might save lives. Well, that's wonderful, dear. Tyler's promotion comes with a raise, too. He might finally be able to afford his own apartment instead of having roommates. I realized then that the distance between Boston and Aurora wasn't just geographical. My family and I were living in completely different worlds, with different definitions of success and different measures of what mattered. Tyler's restaurant promotion was concrete and immediately understandable to them. My biomedical research breakthrough was abstract and intimidating, even when I tried to explain its real-world implications. For the first time, this disconnect didn't hurt. I'd found my place among people who understood the significance of what I did. 6 months later, I received an invitation that changed everything. The International Conference on Cardiac Engineering was being held in Chicago, just 2 hours from my hometown. I'd been selected as the keynote speaker to present our breakthrough research to over 2,000 medical professionals from around the world. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd be returning to Illinois not as the overlooked sister whose PhD graduation wasn't worth attending, but as a leading researcher whose work was revolutionizing cardiac medicine. I decided to invite my family to the conference. It's on a Saturday afternoon, I told my mother over the phone. The keynote presentation is at 2 p.m., and I'll be speaking about the research that could help people like Uncle Jim, who had his heart attack last year. Uncle Jim was my father's brother, who'd spent 3 weeks in the hospital after his cardiac episode. The mention of his name seemed to make my research feel more relevant to my mother. You're speaking at a medical conference? In front of doctors? 2,000 doctors, researchers, and medical device companies from around the world. It's the most prestigious conference in my field. For the first time in our conversations about my career, my mother seemed genuinely impressed. "We'll be there," she said without hesitation. The day of the conference, I stood backstage at the Chicago Convention Center, adjusting my presentation slides one final time. My hands weren't shaking with nerves. I'd presented this research dozens of times to colleagues and investors, but I was curious to see how my family would react to witnessing my professional world firsthand. Dr. Chen, my former advisor, found me before the presentation began. "Kinsley, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. When you walked across that graduation stage alone, I never imagined you'd be keynoting international conferences this quickly." "You knew I was alone at graduation?" "Of course I knew. I also knew you were too proud to let it show how much it hurt. But look at you now. You've built something incredible." As I walked onto the stage, the auditorium lights dimmed and spotlights illuminated the podium. 2,000 medical professionals filled every seat, their attention focused entirely on the research I was about to present. In the third row, I spotted my family, my parents, Emma, and even Tyler, all looking slightly overwhelmed by the scale and formality of the event. "Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Kinsley Parker, and I'm here to discuss how bioengineered cardiac scaffolds are revolutionizing our approach to heart failure treatment." For the next 45 minutes, I presented our research findings with the confidence that comes from years of expertise and months of groundbreaking results. I explained how our technology could help patients regrow healthy heart tissue, reducing the need for transplants and dramatically improving survival rates. The audience asked sophisticated questions that demonstrated their understanding of the complexity and importance of our work. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Medical professionals stood and clapped, not just for the presentation, but for research that could transform their ability to save lives. Several colleagues approached the stage immediately, eager to discuss collaboration opportunities and implementation strategies. But my attention was drawn to my family section. They were still sitting, looking stunned by what they'd just witnessed. This wasn't their daughter and sister explaining complicated science that they couldn't understand. This was Dr. Kinsley Parker, a recognized expert in her field, commanding the respect of thousands of medical professionals. After the conference ended, my family met me in the lobby. For the first time in my life, they seemed genuinely awed by what I'd accomplished. Kinsley, my father said, shaking his head slowly, I had no idea. I mean, I knew you were smart, but seeing all those doctors hanging on your every word, you're famous. Not famous, Dad, just good at what I do. Tyler stepped forward, and for a moment I braced myself for one of his dismissive comments. Instead, he looked directly at me with something I'd never seen from him before: genuine respect. I owe you an apology, he said. I've spent years thinking your science stuff was just, I don't know, boring schoolwork. But what you just did up there, explaining how you're going to help people's hearts get better, that's actually really important. My mother was crying, clutching the conference program with my photo and biography printed inside. I'm so sorry we missed your graduation, she whispered. We didn't understand what it meant. We didn't understand what you were becoming. The apology felt genuine, but it also felt too late. I'd already built a life where my achievements were celebrated and understood. I'd found colleagues who shared my passion and a career that fulfilled me completely. Their recognition, while meaningful, couldn't undo the years of feeling invisible and undervalued. I appreciate that, Mom, really, but I've moved on. 6 months later, our cardiac scaffold technology received FDA approval for clinical trials. The announcement made national news, with my photo appearing in medical journals and technology magazines. Meridian Biotech's stock price jumped 15% in a single day. My family called to congratulate me, and this time they seemed to genuinely understand the magnitude of what I'd achieved. But their pride felt different now. It was tinged with regret for all the achievements they'd missed, all the milestones they'd dismissed as unimportant. Tyler invited me to his wedding the following spring. He'd proposed to Jenny Morrison, the ex-girlfriend he'd been trying to impress at the barbecue that overshadowed my graduation. The invitation included a handwritten note. It would mean everything to have my brilliant sister there. I sent a beautiful gift and a polite decline. I was scheduled to present our clinical trial results at a conference in Geneva that same weekend, an opportunity to share our research with the international medical community. Some things are more important than family barbecues, and I'd finally learned to prioritize what mattered most to me. The little girl who'd won science fairs and dreamed of helping people had grown into Dr. Kinsley Parker, whose research was saving lives around the world. My great-grandmother's locket still hung around my neck, a reminder that education and perseverance could transform not just individual lives, but entire families' futures. And in the end, that transformation had been worth every lonely moment, every missed celebration, and every difficult choice along the way. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.